All right, great. So, real quick overview. OneTouch EHR is a 100% cloud-based application. It can be accessed wherever you are as long as you've got access to the internet, regardless of the platform, whether it's Mac, PC, Windows, Android, iPad. We actually have got the most downloaded app in the App Store for iPad. It's fully featured and functional. Doesn't look any different from what you see right here. Although there are a few more features and sort of cool things that you can do on an iPad that maybe you can't do in a Windows environment. Although I am seeing now that Windows or Microsoft and Android tablets have now gotten to the point where you can actually write and draw on the tablets using the stylus, which are some of the features and functionalities that previously were just relegated to iPad. So there's some cool things happening there. The technology was built actually on a 3G platform. And what that means to you essentially is if anybody is ever out in a rural area where you don't really have good connection or like Wi-Fi, as long as you've got at least 3G connection, you can access and work on your patients. So when you first log in, this is the dashboard, and I would say 98%, or actually, I'm sorry, 80% or so of what I share with you today is customizable to the user. And that same premise holds true on our PM side too, which Mike will explain later. But so the dashboard that you see here, it can be customized to you, the individual user, just based upon what you want to see. And so when I first log on here, I can see who my patient is for the day, why I'm seeing them, the type of visit that they're on, the provider, who's going to be seeing them today, what room they're in, if any, and the status. Some of the additional features that I can drill down in is if I've got multiple locations. So if you guys have got multiple locations, or even if you have other facilities that maybe you go and visit patients at, you can list those here as well. I can drill down and select by all the providers or just select providers. Some of the advanced features that I can pull down here is I can drill down by the room. And again, these can be customized and renamed. The status, are they there, early, whatever. And again, these can also be customized. And then also what type of visit. And these too can be customized. And the nice part about that, and I'll elaborate on this when we get into the encounter, but I'm going to mention it here because it's important and I want you to sort of put this in your hip pocket. Based on the type of visit, you can customize the encounter for workflow purposes. And I'll show you what I mean when we get there. This area over here, these are what we call just quick buckets. And so it's a real quick and easy place so that the provider can come in and check any new incoming messages, any new refills for prescriptions, any new lab results, or any order feeds that need their attention. Now, you see these yellow boxes up here. They're not generally prevalent, but I've got this set up in tutorial mode, and it's something that when you first get started with the EMR, I recommend. And what it basically is there to do is to help give guidance and some tips and tricks on how to use this screen and what are some of the features and functionality here. And so when you click on things like see the video, it will take you to our video library, which is here in the help in the tutorial section. And in that tutorial section, you've got videos for every part of the EMR. And some of these videos are a couple minutes in length, others are much longer, just depending upon where you are. And although this is not designed to replace the training that we provide, it is a great way for you to get acclimated, and if you ever get stuck or in a particular part of the encounter, a real quick way to get some questions and answers. This area up here, this is the menu bar. It will take you anywhere you need to go in the EMR, no matter where you are. It's prevalent throughout, well, it's always present. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time up here in this section where it's like adding patients or adding appointments, primarily because we're going to be having Mike talk about that. But, and so the only thing I will say is that when a new patient calls in to set up an appointment, that information, when it's set up in our PM system, it flows over into this system. So for the sake of conversation today, we're going to assume that that has already taken place, and this is the appointment that has been set up from that. This right here is just an RSS feed. It can be turned off and on from this, and it's just, all it is just information that's flowing in, and it can be set up to be specialized to the type of practice that it is, whether it's family medicine, podiatry, obstetrics, whatever that may be. You can set that up and then have those news feeds come in. But again, those can be turned off and on from here. Pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, so let me now kind of acclimate you to some of the things that you can do before you ever step into the encounter. So as you can see, I've toggled over my patient here, and I've got a real brief synopsis of who they are. And you can see I can take a look at their demographics, their chart, or I can start or resume an encounter. To show you kind of the information that we collect from the demographic standpoint, and again, a lot of this information is filtering over from the PM side of the house, but this particular part of the EMR, it talks both ways. Just the appointments are ones that do not. So you can enter data either on this side or on the other side, but you're not going to want to do them in both. You'll create duplicate records. Okay, so you can see here the type of information that we collect. Here you can set up a patient portal for a new patient and actually have them log into the patient portal and complete the vast majority of all this information before you ever see them. So it's designed to dramatically minimize the intake process for you. Now, you can have them complete that at home. You can have them complete it at a kiosk in the practice. You can hand them an iPad or a Windows tablet when they come in to do all that stuff. Or, you know, worst case scenario, you have somebody there do it for you. But from here, they can actually create their patient preferences, including their favorite pharmacy. And if they don't know exactly where it is, you can see here they've got search capabilities. So they can just put in a city, state, zip code, or if they happen to know a phone number, and it'll pull that information up. Who they're being referred by, and again, if that's important for referral information, if you guys do a lot of work with referrals. Any of their advanced directives. Again, insurance information is primarily kept in our PM side, but you'll have access to view it from here. The guarantor information, and again, this coincides very closely with our practice management software. The medical information that they can put in here. Of course, when they go there, you're just going to see their summary. But what they'll begin to see is their history. So they can begin populating their medical history, their surgical history, their social history, family history, any conservative therapies. This is also a great place, for example, for problems lists. If you have specific information that you need to find out about your patient. So you've got maybe some very specific questions that you'd like to ask about their marital status, their family history, things like that. Do they have a history of diabetes or heart failure or cancer or things like that? You can have those questions built into the system, and that's very easy, very, very easy to do. You can just add that here. They can list their allergies out here, any prior problems lists, any procedures that they've had in the past. And this keeps all that information on hand. And then, just so you guys know, in the attachment section, it keeps track of all of the prior orders, all the notes, any documentation that you've had them complete or has been faxed in. So you can assign that to the patient. Keeps track of the messages that you've left for the patient, any phone calls that you've had. And again, a lot of this functionality also resides in our PM, which Mike will show you as well. But I just wanted to let you know that it's also here. Any films or images or things that you collect on behalf of your patient, they're kept here en masse. But they're also attached individually to the note that they're associated with in all their prior visits. Okay, so we'll step back up here to the dashboard, and we'll get started into a brief encounter. Okay, when you first step into an encounter, I'm going to just click on this chart here real quick. the very first thing that pops up is their summary sheet. And in the summary sheet, it gives you access to all, well, actually, it keeps track at a view their prior 10 visits, but it keeps track of all their visits, so you can see here, so you can toggle through it. Their meds, their patient forms, their vitals, their health maintenance, any allergies that they have. If you're seeing them as a follow-up, what you can do is you can come here, look at the details of that prior note or that prior visit, and it'll default to the H&P, which you can take a look at. But if you wanted to see the SOAP note, all you have to do is just come up here and click on the SOAP note, and it switches you to that view. And now I'm looking at the SOAP note. And you say, okay, great, that's what I needed to see. Now I'm ready to go into the encounter. So when you go to the encounter, it's going to bring you back to the summary sheet. But there's one exception. So now I can actually, instead of just looking at the details, I can import data from that prior visit into today's visit. So if I hit import, I can just select what tabs I want to pull in. I want to pull in their vitals, the chief complaint, the HPI, review of systems, the physical exam, point of care assessment, and so forth. And when you do that, it'll alert you up here that that information's been imported. Now, when we talk about workflow, okay, so if this is a little bit outside of how you like to do things and you want to change it up a little bit, it's as easy as dragging and dropping. So you can drag these tabs around, move the order of them. When you up here in the administration and the setup, you can actually change some of the names of this. And now, if everybody recalls when I was talking about the type of visit, let's say this is just a follow-up, and you don't need to see all of these different tabs. Perhaps you only need to see maybe the HPI, physical exam, maybe the assessment plan, and super bill. What you can do is you can associate or hide these tabs based on the type of visit. So when the front office schedules that appointment for John Wayne, and it's just a follow-up, and they indicate that it is a follow-up visit, when you then open your encounter, only those tabs that you have associated to that type of visit will display. Okay? So that's really designed to, again, help minimize or maximize the amount of time that you have with your patients. All right, so when we move into the vitals, you can come in here and start just filling in the data, pressure, over 90, pulse, 80, height, weight. You put in their height and their weight, and it will automatically calculate their BMI. And one of the nice features, too, are some of the graphs. So if you click on the graphs, what it'll do is it'll map out the prior 10 visits in a snapshot. So you can kind of get an idea if there's been a lot of movement and change. And so, for example, if you see an elevated blood pressure over a period of time and the patient doesn't seem to be distressed today, maybe that is cause to ask additional questions or maybe look at some additional testing. You can also create custom charts up here or add custom charts if you need to. And so here you've got an age weight chart and it creates the graph for you. What you then can do is if you wanted to make that a part of a note, you can just right click and print that or save the image as a file and then load that into the note somewhere down the road, maybe in the physical exam, or print it out just for the patient's information. You can also create custom charts or custom vitals down here as well. All right, moving into the chief complaint, why are we seeing this person today? All right, if we imported any information from the prior visit, it's going to show up over here, in which case we can either modify, change, delete that information. You'll see here, it keeps track of all the patient's prior complaints. And we've also built some common complaint macros based upon the providers that we work with across the country. And so these are just a broad swath. You can also create your own custom complaints. Very, very easy to do, create those macros. And so I can come up here and I can start typing fever. And of course, it's already in the system, so it's going to find out. I'm just going to select this one, add that. It's going to show up over here. And I'm also going to select this from my common complaint macro, and it's going to be over here as well. So now when we move into the HPI, again, you'll see my complaints there. I can address each of these complaints individually, or I can consolidate them all onto one note by just coming over here and saying, okay, put everything together. But because I've got a macro over here, I want to put them individually. If the practice does any kind of reporting with regards to CMS for meaningful use, MIPS macro, you're going to see this throughout the system. We have an E&M helper built in to the system to just give some guidance on not only what CMS is requiring, but also to help you maximize the visit for reimbursement purposes, right? We want to do whatever we can to help you guys become more efficient, effective, and profitable. And that's just one of the ways we're able to do that. And so when we move down to here to headache, you're going to see this little plus sign come up. That's just indicating to me that there's a macro there. And so when I do that, I click on this. Where's the location of the headache? Left temple. What's the quality? So dull pain. Duration, it started a day ago. Severity, maybe 5 out of 10. Timing, you get the picture. You get the idea of what that is. Now, you can add information in here in one of a couple of different ways. So you can come in here and free type this. You can, if you're using the Dragon Voice for Medical plugin that we employ, you can use that and just dictate it here, and I'll just give you a brief demonstration. We have a 65-year-old male complaining of fever, chills, and headache. Headache. There we go. Or if you're like most doctors that I work with and most providers that I work with, there's some fairly standardized text that you will usually use with some slight variations for pretty much every note. Rather than have to dictate or type that out every single time, what you can do is type it one time, give it a short little brief name that you can remember, and you create your own macro to it. And then just come down here and select that. You can actually use multiple macros if you wish. And then make that part of the note. Simple enough?
Yep, that is pretty simple.
Good. The history and the meds and allergy portion of it, and even the review of systems, are things that, if you, for the most part, the patient will have added during the intake process. But again, if you needed to come back, get some information about their medical history, their surgical, social, or family histories, that information is here. Meds and allergies are going to be listed here. They will have listed out what they have listed in here, but if you just wanted to show only the active ones, just untoggle that, and there's the only active allergies that they're working with. If you needed to add another allergy, you can come up here, select what type of allergy it is, what they're allergic to, and what the reaction is, and then it'll save it over here. It lists out their current medications, which ones are active, which ones are refills. I can also create a new script from here, which I will quickly do. When I do that, it brings up the SIG builder. Diagnosis may be flu, influenza. Influenza. All right, so there's my diagnosis, and oh yeah, well, we've got a big opioid problem here. Let's contribute to that. I'm just going to provide them a little bit of hydrocodone. And so now we are connected with SureScript, so it brings up the formulary, and I can select from one of the following, or I can go ahead and keep the drug as it is being listed. I'm going to go ahead and keep it. If there is any manufacturer's notifications, as there are, it will also notify you. So again, I can just make note here. Great, override that. If it is one of my favorites, and I've saved it as one of my favorites, it'll come in here and pre-populate this information. I can just fill out whatever additional data I need to complete, and then I can dispense it as written and add it to the queue. You'll see down here that the pharmacy preference list from the patient is here. Now, since I'm not connected to a live, I'm not set up through e-prescribing electronically, this is a demo environment. If I needed for some reason to change this information here, maybe, for example, the patient normally gets their prescriptions at Walmart, but today CVS is on the way home, I could cancel this and add CVS, look up CVS quickly here and add that in here. The review of systems, again, you can have the patient complete this information. And so what, again, as part of the E&M helper, what we've done is we've set the review of systems to default to reviewed and negative, unless there's something that that they have identified in the HPI. And of course, we included fever as a broad swath instead of individually. So I'm going to have to come here and check that, in which case this box no longer is checked. In the physical exam section, one of the reasons why practices love our software is it really gives them a chance to be very broad in nature. So multi-specialty practices love this. And what I mean by that is you can come in here and change the templates within your library. So today I may be seeing somebody for neurological, and tomorrow another provider maybe seeing somebody in here for internal medicine issues or rehabilitation or whatever, physical therapy, whatever it may be. So I can come in here and just select within my database of different templates and then work with that. Now, even within that, I can change, alter, modify any of the information here by just coming up into my preferences and templates and just custom create those templates to meet the needs of the practice. And so that's extremely easy to do. We've created video tutorials to show you how to do it, or if you're just not so inclined and you'd like to have us do that, we can do that for you for a fee. You would send us over the templates that you want built, let us take a look at them and find out about how much time it would take to do that. We'll send you a quote for that. But you can come in here, again, everything is set to reviewed and negative or normal negative. Unless you come in and just physically change something, you can again pretext type, use your macros, or dictate your notes. Modify anything that you need to. Save it. Now, down here at the bottom, you'll also see a camera. So if you're using a device that has an onboard camera, like an iPad or an Android tablet, or even some laptops, what you can do if you need to is take a photograph of whatever body system that you're working with. Let's say somebody's got a nasty rash that you really want to make note of. So you can take a photograph of that and import that into the record. You can also set the template up in such a manner that it defaults every single time to bring up a display. So I'm just going to pull this real quick. And so, for example, if you're using your iPad, you can use the iPad draw features and functionality. Come in here, make notes, make X's, make a big smiley face, whatever makes sense. And then if you'd like to make that, and along with your notes, your sticky notes, as part of that patient's visit, just click down here, and then that will then print out. If you ever want to see where you are and what the visit summary looks like at any given point in time, let's quickly come up here. There's our summary thus far. There's our vitals, our chief complaint that we put in there, the HPI. And then there's our image and it would also have any notes or anything that you've done to it. When that's done, you move over into your point of care. And so the point of care obviously are for things that you do within the confines of the practice itself. So if you've got some labs that you run internally, maybe like a glucose, so we can run a glucose test. I'm just going to select that, and I hit the order key. It's going to open up an order form, and I now can actually start completing this information. If you want to put a CPT in a fee code structure, you can. Sometimes you don't know until you're actually in, or until you know what you need in the glucose. So that's the reason why this is generally blank. Radiology, same thing. Any in-house procedures that you might do, could be like an x-ray, ankle x-ray, whatever that may be, treatment procedures, time-based modalities, immunizations, injections, meds, supplies. The supplies that we keep internally, it's not the same as maybe like inventory control that might exist, sometimes in the practice management. This is primarily based on things that that are billable to the insurance company. So durable medical equipment, crutches, splints, Botox injections, vials, things like that. And so once you've done that, now the results come back internally, or if you've ordered anything from an outside lab. Now, one of the questions that I do get a lot is, do you have the capability of doing grafts for labs? And my answer to that question is yes, we do. Let me get to it and show you. Again, because I'm not tied up or I'm not logged in, I'm not live with a lab, I can't show you a live setting, but I can give you screenshots of just some of the data that we pull. So there's like a metabolic panel graph, and again, it keeps track of the prior 10 lab results. So you can see any ongoing things that are taking place with that patient. Okay, so now we've begun the process of building out our diagnosis. And when we get to the assessment section, you'll see a list of favorites. And again, these are things that you can build on your own. Why are we seeing this patient today? Why have we seen that patient in the past? And then some additional problems lists. These can be subjective, just based upon the practice or the patient. And so today, we're just going to say, well, they've got the flu. There's our diagnosis. We're going to add this. It's going to show up down here. And if you want to add that to your problems list, you can over here, or you can add it to your favorites, show it up over here. If it's something that the CDC needs to be made aware of, you can report it down here. And now, once you create one diagnosis, that opens up your plan section. Now, the plan section is where you can order everything that is outside the confines. So maybe now we need to send something off to LabCorp for further analysis, or we need a test from them for validation. So we just come down here, we select the lab we want to order, add new. It's going to show up down here. And so now we can start filling this in. We want to diagnose them with flu. Is that really what they have? So maybe we need a CBC or a lipid panel. I'm just going to say CBC for the time being. Come down here and save this. And it's going to begin building out a label for us. So there's our LabCorp label. From here, what I can do is I can either print this. If I were live and I were set up to electronically file this with the lab, I could then just hit print and send to the lab, and it would send it electronically. And then you're good to go. If we have any outside procedures, any tests that we need to run, This is where you'd order those. You can also fill your prescriptions here as opposed to doing it back here in the meds and allergies. You can fill multiple scripts here. And again, the SIG builder automatically defaults, so you can build it out as you need to. So it looks exactly the way that it was when I showed it to you before. Referrals. So let's say that we got this patient from Dr. Jones, and we've done our encounter, our assessment. Now we're going to refer it back to Dr. Jones. So I've added him. Just going to click here. It's going to open up almost what looks like a fax cover sheet. And so I can come in here and make any notes. And anywhere where you see that little icon, if you're using our Dragon voice for medical interface, that just shares with you that you can dictate that information as opposed to typing it. You can also use macros here as well. So you can dictate what type of information or how much of the information you want to send back to Dr. Jones, and you can either fax or print this referral. In the coming months, there will be a third button here that will enable you to just hit send. And let's say that Dr. Jones is using some other type of EMR. Maybe they're using AlphaPoint or Dr. Chrono or whomever. And so you're using OneTouch. You can hit that button, and it will send all that data over to Dr. Jones, and it will populate inside whatever EMR he's working with, and he can then just assimilate and work with that information. That's just the continuity of data and interoperability. So we're probably 45 to 60 days away from just having that fully complete and operational. Any advice or instructions you want to leave with the patient? So we are connected to Medline Plus, so I'm just going to come in here and type in influenza. Just going to type this here. I'm going to insert it into the patient information. And again, I can create, let's see, drink lots of fluid. If I wanted to, I can add any final notes, and then that will be saved. And again, to find out what this is looking like, you can just hit the visit summary. There's what we just put in here, and just to show you, I'm just going to click this, and it will take them to Medline Plus, and they can learn whatever they need to learn about flu. Let's see, health maintenance plans. This is an underutilized but a wonderful little tool for the practice. So right now you can see what they're enrolled in, but you can also pull down here and set them up for something else. So maybe hypertension. We're going to add that. Hypertension comes up. So we can set up for clinical alerts and patient reminders. What's the plan? From age to what problems list to include, and then what reminders and when. So this is what the patient will see. They'll get reminded about that March 9th, a year from now. You can save that. And now that's part of that patient's plan. These here, these are customizable. You can create your own plans and your own tabs. So I'm ready. I'm done with this patient today. I want to see you back here in a week. And warm. Hit the patient summary. This is what the patient will see. Stay warm. Follow up 1 week. You can either print this, have them pick it up on the way out the door, or save it as a PDF, put it in their patient portal. And you're now done. You go to the super bill. Come here and you select your service level if you know it. If you need to get some additional information under the Advanced tab, you've got additional services that you can employ. Over here, if you're keeping time-based modalities with the patient, it keeps track of how long you were in the encounter Now, I wasn't actually in the encounter for an hour and 29 minutes. I just didn't close the encounter from yesterday.
Time flies in here.
There's our diagnosis, our point of care. There's our plan, and any final comments we want to put in here. Advise the patient to come in a week from now. And then now if I'm the provider, I can come in here, put in my PIN number, close and post these charges. I can post the charges only, or I can close only. If I am a provider that needs a supervising physician to review the note, what I can then do is come down here and select whatever doctor I need to review this note, put them in here, and then when I close it or when I exit the encounter, Dr. Demo will actually get a note in their quick bucket, if you remember on their dashboard, that they need to come back and review this note. So I'm going to close this note out. Now, because I've actually ordered some labs, it's telling me that I've got open orders or open items in my point of care, which I know about. So I'm going to go ahead and override that. Come back, close and post it. Now this encounter has been locked. Now, that's not to say that if the doctor made an error and needs to come back in here to make an adjustment that they can't do it, they can. But the administrator would just have to come in here and unlock the encounter so that you can make an amendment to it. Any questions on that before I turn it over to Mike and show you what happens when you finish the super bill and send it over to the PM?
I think we only have until 1, so
okay.
We need to move on to the practice management section.
There you go. All right, Mike, it's all yours, buddy.
Perfect. Give me 1 second here while this is downloading. So real quick, while I'm getting my screen shared, Steve, who I heard you kind of go through a little bit of a roll call there at the beginning. Who's all present on your side?
We're all the people that are going to be using mostly the practice management side.
Okay.
So it's good for us to know what the EHR looks like and what it can do because we may be billing before too long here, but most everybody that's on today is going to be really looking at how to schedule and register folks. Okay.
So I know we're cutting it close on your time here, and this you should see my screen any second here. Where I'm going to pick up just real quick on this home dashboard, I'll go over just some quick navigation, I'll pick up right where Kevin left off, what the charge looks like when it comes into the PM side, how you review that, bill it out, and then we can kind of take a step back and just start at the point of registration, adding and scheduling that first appointment. Does that seem like a fair game plan?
Actually, I think what we need to do is not do the charging part because we're not going to be using that part of the system. If we can just start with a patient calls as a new patient, how they register, and then how we do the demographics and things like that.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly do that. Are you seeing my screen okay now? Did it show up on your side?
I think so. We're watching your cursor run up and down here.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so real quick before I jump into the calendar, this is the home dashboard. This is the screen you're going to see as soon as you log into the PM side. Again, similar to the EHR, this is web-based on the practice management side of the house as well. The home dashboard is 100% customizable by user. So depending on your role within the organization and where you're going to, where you're navigating to in the system, if you notice on the right-hand side, you'll see these green push pin or thumbtacks, and each section's kind of broken up with its own pin there or thumbtack. And just clicking on that pins that section to your home dashboard. So you'll notice different screens that we jumped to today, you can pin certain areas to your dashboard so that when you log in, right, you're 1 click away from where you need to get to. You're not clicking 3-4 times just to access the calendar or specific report. So, I've kind of designed my home dashboard around a biller's atmosphere. Right, I have some claim activity here, which we'll skip over here for the moment. My reports, so I can identify the 5-6 reports that I run regularly, and kind of save those to my favorites, and then pin those to my home dashboard. So I'm 1 click away running those reports as soon as I log in. I do have my calendar registration buttons. You can pin those to your home dashboard as well. And I'm going to just start. I'm going to go right into our calendar here. And very robust and very flexible calendar as well. So I've set up a couple different views. You'll notice that the different colors that you're looking at, obviously those are customizable by you. You can color code your specific appointment types. So I have just, a generic appointment is my aqua blue color there. My established visits or follow-ups are my orange. My new patient visits are my green appointments. And then you'll also notice there's border colors around some of those appointments as well. And you can actually set up border colors based on the status of the appointment. So if it's just a scheduled appointment, right, there's no border color. Maybe when the patient checks in, we can actually make the border color green or any different color that you'd like to choose. So at a high level, you can quickly see anyone outlined in green. Those are the patients physically in the office right now. We have a reminder call system built into our schedule as well, so we can generate appointment reminders via phone call, text message, or email. And right, if a patient, we generate a phone call and the patient presses 1 to confirm their appointment, we'll actually change the status of the appointment to confirmed, and then we can actually outline that appointment in blue or any other color of choice as well to indicate that patient confirmed their reminder. We're truly expecting them to show up today. And then on my right-hand side, I marked the patient as a no-show, and that can obviously change the status and outline that color to red as well. So just want to go over a couple of the colors you're looking at there. Over on the left side menu, we have these display profiles, and these are also unique by user. So depending if you have a couple front desk staff that only manage one of your provider schedules or 2 of your provider schedules, and they don't need to see all 3 of them, you can set up these different display profiles as well, a default view to just show you these 4 providers. I've set up a couple different views just to give you an idea of what this looks like, but you can, right, if you have PTs, for example, you can set them up separately. If you have different locations or facilities, you can actually manage your appointments at the facility level as well with these display profiles. So I set up a surgery center that I can set up separately than my main office. So you'll notice you can manage here at the top, Chesney at the main office, Franken at the main office. I'm able to manage my schedule at the provider level and at the facility level if you have your providers bouncing from a couple different locations. So just a couple other real quick navigational points. This sidebar here allows you to pick and choose the providers you want to see, the facilities that you want to see. Just moving across some of the tabs here, this second tab is going to show you all the patients that are physically checked in. So in addition to just outlining those patients in a specific border color, we can actually show you a list of all the patients that are physically checked in at this time as well. When we check the patient out, obviously they'll come off of this list. So it is a true running list of the patients physically in the office. The search button here just allows you to do a quick search availability. So if you're scheduling a follow-up visit during checkout, or maybe a new patient is called and is requesting a first available appointment, you're able to search availability here rather than having to just jump through your calendar day by day to try to find an opening. And we give you a couple different preferences or a couple different settings here, right? If they're coming in for a specific provider, you can choose a provider, choose your location, choose your appointment type, choose the duration you're looking for. Or right, maybe it's that new patient, so we're just looking for a 30-minute window. Doesn't matter which provider they're seeing since it's a new patient. And then how quickly do you want to, what availability are you searching, right? First available appointment. So by default, we're going to put a year's date here to show you first available right away. But maybe going back to that follow-up example, maybe it's somebody you want to see in 2 weeks. So you could actually just come here and do a T+14, and that'll be today plus 14 days. And as soon as I tab off of that, it'll put the correct date in there. We can also take the patient's preference or patient's availability into consideration, right? Maybe they can come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings is the only time they're available. And then how many results do I want to see here? But I can quickly do that, get my first 10 results of what's available, and then just run a few of these dates times by the patient till we find something that works. And then just by clicking on that appointment time will take me into the scheduling window, which I'm going to show you here in a second. So the search availability just allows you to quickly schedule. And then you have some settings, right? If you want to, right now, all of my providers are in 10-minute increments. If one of my providers saw patients in 15-minute increments, it would actually show you the time on their particular template or their particular column. But you have the ability, if you always want to see the time for all your providers, you can. If you want to kind of condense the view down and make it a little bit smaller and congested, you're able to do so as well. These are all settings unique by user. If you want to make the background of your schedule green, you can do so. And then also, you've probably noticed on the actual appointment bubbles, there's various information. There's the patient's name. There's a green check mark indicating our eligibility response came back eligible, or a red X indicating it came back not eligible. So we do have eligibility verifications linked up to the calendar as well. So we can do batch eligibility 1, 2, 3 days in advance, however you choose to set that up. But basically what that does is it looks 2 days ahead, grabs all your patients on the calendar 2 days from now, and does a batch eligibility transaction on each of those patients. And then we update the calendar there with a green check or a red X indicating how that response came back. So you know right away how that response looks, what's their eligibility situation. But right, we're showing you their date of birth, the appointment type, the status. That's all controlled on this section here. So if you want to actually see the time or the reason or the note that this patient's coming in for, right, you can pick and choose how descriptive you want those bubbles to be. Or, right, maybe you just one of those front desk staff, or that doesn't matter to you. You're just checking the patients in. Maybe you just want to see their name and date of birth, or just even their name. You're able to limit that appointment bubble that way as well. So with that being said, to actually schedule the appointment, or maybe if we're scheduling a new patient visit, so we need to register the patient as well, you can do all of that right from the calendar. So I'm just going to click here in this open 8:30 slot for Dr. Hawkins here. And clicking in that appointment, now it's prompting me to choose my patient, right? The first thing I need to do is choose who the patient is. So maybe we're looking for Michael Smith. So if I type in Smith, it pulls up all my patients with the last name Smith. I don't see Michael in here. So now I'm going to do my register patient. So we embed a register patient button right in here. And it's a clean one-page registration screen. You'll notice that the yellow fields on here, those are the required fields that you'll have to complete to fully register the patient, but you have full control over that. And that's true for anywhere in the system. You're doing data entry. You have the ability to control what fields are mandatory, and that's an administrative function. So whoever the administrators are on the account, anywhere where you're doing that data entry, down at the bottom of the screen next to the save button, you're going to have this set of keys. So if there's a maybe we want to make first and last name mandatory, maybe we want to make the marital status mandatory as well. So by making those mandatory, now when I go into my registration screen, right, my first name, last name is mandatory, my marital status is mandatory, and it's just, again, clean one-page registration process, basic demographic information, address information, insurance information can be set up here, and then any additional information that you want to capture, we have the ability to add custom fields as well. So a common custom field I think we get from a lot of our clients lately is kind of a how'd you hear about us? What is our marketing campaigns? Are they working for us? So we can make custom fields, and they can be, free form text. They can be fields where you have to use the magnifying glass and choose an appropriate value, or we can make it a drop-down box, so you have to choose a value from that box as well. And all of those custom fields are reportable. Any questions on the registration process from here? It seemed pretty straightforward.
Nope. And just to confirm, when somebody calls for an initial, hey, I want to come in and join your practice, we can just do a name, date of birth, and email, and then they can go into the patient portal if we choose to set that up, and they can fill out most of that.
That is correct.
Yeah, so we have, and I'll give you a kind of a nice workflow here as well, Steve. So inside the calendar, if you go to register an appointment and you go to schedule the appointment and register the patient, right, So I'm doing the registration inside the calendar. You noticed from the beginning of the call when we were looking at that home screen, there was a calendar, there was a patient registration button on my home dashboard as well. We can actually set up those required or mandatory fields uniquely depending on where you access the registration screen from. So if you're in the calendar and you go to register the patient, maybe you want to do what we call a quick reg. We just want to get their first name, last name, maybe a phone number, maybe an email address, and that's it. We don't want to spend the time getting their insurance, getting their address info, getting all of that info if they don't show, we have the ability to have them use the portal to give us that information. So you do have the ability to do a quick reg and just set up first name, last name, phone number, email as the mandatory fields, and that's all you need to capture from the registration point of registration to get them scheduled into the calendar. But you can set up your mandatory fields through that registration process differently than what's mandatory if you were to register a patient from outside of the calendar, if that makes sense.
Yeah, gotcha.
So once we have the patient registered, now we just need to finish this appointment screen to get that appointment in the book. So I'll just use a Smith patient here. We'll use John Smith. Once we've identified our patient, on the right-hand side, it's going to just give you a little bit of information if you want to go over that with the patient while you have them on the phone or you have them in front of you. So it has their address if you want to confirm that, their phone number if you want to confirm that, email if you want to confirm that, insurance information, United Healthcare. If I hover over UHC, gives me a little bit more information, their copay that I can remind them about, their policy number, so I can verify that that information is still accurate. And then we also give you their outstanding patient balance if you want to try to remind them that we're going to ask for that when we check them in as well. So you have some just information about the patient, but really to get them scheduled in the books, you just have to identify the patient, identify your appointment type, which I'm just going to do established visit. The duration will default. If you want, again, anything on this screen, I have the reason and the note marked as mandatory, but obviously you can control if those fields are mandatory or not. And when I save the appointment, they're just immediately added to my calendar, John Smith right here at 9:40. So there's the actual registration, the actual scheduling of the appointment. Now, what happens when John Smith shows up? That check-in process, also very straightforward. If I click on John's appointment bubble here, this pop-up window should give me all the information I need to check John in, collect his copay, verify his information still up to date. So again, at the top, I can verify phone number, address, insurance information. Again, I can cover over the UHC from here. And then this middle section is really all of my action buttons. I can check them in, cancel, reschedule, delete. I can run a real-time eligibility verification from here. I can edit the appointment. I can get out to the patient's account. I can edit their demographics, edit their insurance information, review any eligibility results from prior verifications. Again, I can see their patient balance here. So I have access to all that information right from here. Checking the patient in is as easy as clicking the check-in button here. We also, you saw the reschedule button in there, but we do also have a drag and drop reschedule functionality. Let me go back into John here. We actually turn this into a workflow as well. So when I click on John's appointment and I click check in, you're going to notice a couple things. One, the cancel, the reschedule, the delete buttons. If we're checking the patient in, that doesn't make sense anymore to cancel or reschedule or delete the appointment. So we'll actually turn this first button into a workflow. I click check in. Now that button turns into an enter copay. I click enter copay. I can say that John's paying us a $20 check. That $20 is his copay for this visit. Or maybe we're getting that extra $45. So John actually is paying us $65. Only $20 of it should be applied as a copay to this visit. The other $45 will be applied to his previous balance. So I can collect his copay. I can collect his previous balances all right here at once. And when I save this, it creates that receipt in the system. Now I can actually print out a receipt to hand to the patient of their payment. But at that point, I'm done. I've checked John in. I've collected his copay. I've collected his previous balance even. So there is the check-in process. And then, right, that that eligibility, or excuse me, that check-in button that turned to an enter copay button is now a check out button. So if I'm checking John out, I would just click on his appointment and then I would click the check out button. So kind of flew through that. Any questions on that process? Does that seem to make sense? Seem pretty user friendly?
Yeah. Seemed good.
Good. One of the things I will point out too on the calendar, I mentioned that drag drop feature. You'll notice on the left side we have this reschedule queue, and really this turns into a really nice workflow. So this reschedule queue can be used for a couple of different things. Maybe Rhonda here calls and says, I have a sick 2-year-old at home. I'm not going to be able to make it in for my follow-up visit. I need to call you back to reschedule. I'm not sure when I'm going to be available. So you can actually drag Rhonda over into this reschedule queue. And I can put in any reason here. Rhonda has sick 2-year-old, need to call back to reschedule. So when I save that, at the end of the day, end of the week, this reschedule queue, you really shouldn't have a backlog of appointments in there. So I can actually pop this open into its own window here, and maybe at the end of the day or maybe every Friday, it's our routine to just clean these up, make sure these patients are getting rescheduled. So I have the reason that Rhonda rescheduled, I have her contact number, I have all of her appointment details. So I can actually call Rhonda and say, hey, how does next Wednesday sound? If that works, I can actually just click the link here, and it'll link me to this appointment so that when I go out to next Wednesday and click on the 10 o'clock appointment, all of this appointment details will paste to that appointment slot that I'm rescheduling to. So really just turns into a reschedule workflow to make sure these patients are getting followed up on. Another area real quick that this reschedule queue can be used for, if Dr. Hawkins last minute has to cancel, he had a family emergency, he's not going to be able to come in today, we need to cancel all of his appointments. If I block off Hawkins' day, and I'm just going to say block time, and this is for doctor is out, family emergency, whatever I want to display on the calendar will go here, and we want to do this for the entire day. So when I do that, it's telling me right away there's 5 appointments that conflict with this block. What do you want to do with those? We can actually add them to your reschedule queue so that now those 5 appointments show up in my reschedule queue, and I have a nice little workflow. I have all their contact information, appointment details, and I can try to call these patients and let them know that the doctor's going to be out today.
And Steve, I just noticed the time. How are we doing, and was there any additional information you needed to get clarity on before we finish up?
Yeah, we've got a couple more minutes. I think the important one is that group scheduling that we had talked about, and just so we're all on the same page here, we want to be able to show a block of 1 hour that has 10 people in it that show up as appointments, but also looks different and maybe is labeled as a group.
So we're actually, an interesting question, we're actually in the process of developing that piece of appointment functionality, Steve. I'll have to do some research and see where that falls in our development queue. I know we're working on this. We have a couple.
Right, I thought that was something that was all set.
So the group appointments, we have a couple behavioral mental health facilities that we're developing that for right now. It should be, in the back of my mind, I want to say it's in our March release, so we'll have it in production by the end of this month before you could ever go live on the system. But I don't want to overpromise that. Let me check and confirm when that will be, when we expect that to be released into production. But yes, it's going to work exactly the way you're envisioning it. So if this John Smith, I know this is only a 20-minute visit here, but if that was an hour-long appointment, you would see a list of all 10 of those patients as a group. When I click on that appointment, you're going to see, and when we get this, and maybe if this is in our testing environment, I can set up a follow-up call with you and walk you through what that looks like. But basically, you're going to have all 10 of those appointments listed, all those patients listed here. You can quickly check or uncheck any of the patients that are absent from the group appointment. And then it works the exact same way as the scheduling functionality that I just showed you. only you're going to be managing, right, a group appointment of 10, 12, however many patients are in that group. So that's, yeah, it is something that's in our development queue. We've committed contractually for a couple clients to develop that for them. So it is something that is coming, that we definitely are going to have in production very soon. And I feel confident in saying it's something that'll be in production before you could go live on the system. But it is in our development queue currently. So let me just get an up-to-date how far along we are on that, if there's something in our demo or test environment that I can show you. And then also, right, if we're getting ready to put the final touches on it, maybe I can show it to you, get your feedback if there's anything that additionally you would want this group appointment to do. I think this would be a great time to introduce that to you so that we can possibly put those changes or modifications into production when we release the group appointments.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, all right, team. Appreciate the time. Steve, I appreciate you coordinate your folks on your side. I'll get with Mike, and once he's got that information verified, and I can circle back to you, and we can maybe huddle back up together for a couple of minutes and show you that one piece, and then we can kind of figure out where we go from there. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of the day. Great week. Mike, as always, appreciate your help. And Steve, I will talk to you here very soon.
Okay, sounds good. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks all.